A. Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turfs Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning into the Water Zone show this evening.
Well, a pleasant good afternoon and good evening and good morning, depending where you are in this wonderful world. Everybody's having a good time and staying dry because it's starting to rain out here in the Phoenix area. But welcome and thanks again for tuning into the Water Zone show. I'm Rob Starr along with Miss Tara Mullally, and this is her second show, and we're very proud of that. And she's an awesome person, and she's going to contribute a lot since she's been in the water agency forever and ever and ever, even though she's really young.
Yeah, you couldn't get rid of me that quickly.
No, I wouldn't do that. Wouldn't do that at all. And Chris Davies said you did a great job last time, and I'm sure he listens in on every show, so he's a good man.
But have you told her about the requirement, though? I'm not sure you have. You see, there's this requirement, Tara, that you have to match the little drawing that they have on the card because they don't want to change that drawing. So you have to shave your head. That's all. Right?
Yeah, I mean, no big deal. I'll just put a wig on when I go out, and then for the show, I'll take it off. It'll be perfect.
Exactly.
Well, it'll save you from all those autograph seekers.
Exactly. Nobody will recognize me.
Yeah. I know Chris and I had matching satin, I guess you call them the satin road show rock jackets. Had the water zone on.
Oh, yeah, this one. I saw it.
Yeah.
The little Charlie's Angels action.
Yes, it had that on. Had that on there with a big NBC on the front of it. So, but I'll tell you one quick story before we start. And years ago, we were at the Southern Nevada Water Smart Irrigation Show, and we had a vehicle that I got wrapped from Ford, and it looked like a police car.
Participant is now exiting.
And so it looked like a police car. It was all wrapped black and white instead of protected service to irrigate and conserve, had lights on top and everything like that. We also had police uniforms that I got.
Awesome.
With badges, but it said, this is the time we were working with CBS television, and it said Toro Company and CBS, but from 5 feet away, it was a real police, looked like a real police thing. So I'm walking through the convention center at the hotel, and walking, some lady comes running up to me, help, what's the mission? I just got robbed, I need you. I said, I'm not a policeman. She says, yes, you are. I said, no, I'm not. She says, yes, you are. You're dressed. And I couldn't convince her, and I had to get other security people to get her, and I felt sorry because I couldn't help her, but I directed her to the right people. So anyway, that was a fun job. But we're glad to have... We're happy that Ms. Austin is here today. And Chris, what's going on? There's lots of stuff with the weather happening and some other things that are of importance. Why don't you fill us in on what you think we should all be worried about now?
No, well, let's not start with the worry. Let's start with the good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Looks like we might have a storm coming in, a typhoon that was threatening Japan. Looks like the moisture that was in it's going to get sucked into the jet stream and come into California. And we always like to have that snow and rain, and this is the season for snow and rain. So Monday through Wednesday could be heavy rain in the Bay Area and feet of snow in the Sierra Nevada. So we'll be looking forward to that.
And with the glaciers melting last week, that's really good news.
Yeah, we're just having lots of fun. No, it's great that we're getting snow this early, and hopefully it keeps coming, and hopefully it doesn't shut off come January, because that's been sort of this emerging weather pattern. And that's just me saying that. That's not any forecast or anything. That's my recollection, that we have nice wet falls, and then come January it turns off. and if it's not precipitating, then it's drying. And the longer those dry spells go, the more snowpack we lose. So hopefully we're going to have a nice, strong water year, and we'll get lots of snow for the skiers and for the reservoirs, and lots of precipitation that doesn't cause any major flooding. That's the hope, as always. So we'll see. But we have La Nina here coming, and that's sort of like the the potential question as to what's going to happen. Interestingly, La Nina is cold water ocean, and we're also simultaneously having a heat wave. And if you look at the graph of ocean temperatures, you will see that up in the northeast side of the Pacific Ocean, over by Russia and that area, it's another record heat wave. And then over by California and the coast is the La Nina. So we kind of have these two things going on at the same time, and that is a little bit unprecedented there. But we'll see. We have La Nina, and it's a weak La Nina. They don't think it's going to hang around very long. Although the San Francisco Chronicle published a map of California and the last 12 weak La Nina events in the past 70 years, and it actually shows that quite often the Sacramento, San Joaquin Basin and the Sierras get a little bump in precipitation, and the southern part of the state is dry. So we'll see if it works out that way.
Yeah, the last La Nina ended in 2023, and that was the wettest year I felt like ever.
Yeah, the La Nina is it's not El Nino and La Nina are not great predictors of what the season is going to be.
Well, it's raining out here now in Phoenix, and it's supposed to be raining for 3 days with flood warnings. So,
yes,
storms coming this way, or is arriving here.
Yes, that's the other thing. Yes, in the Southwest, there's the tropical storm Priscilla. Is it? What name is it coming for you guys?
Priscilla.
Yeah, but you haven't had much of monsoon, have you?
A couple of weeks ago we did.
Yeah, so here's some more moisture for you.
The streets were flooded. I took pictures and the videos and sent it to Chris because it was just pouring down the street here, unbelievable. And but quickly it runs off, and then it's 102 the next day, so and sunny. So it goes what it goes. So I also I read actually that some illegal cannabis cultivation leaves they're leaving us a present in California, a chemical footprint.
Yeah, there's lots of nasty stuff that they pull out when there's these illegal grows. They tend to use chemicals that have long been banned, and they're finding that a lot of these things are persisting in the sediments and in the soils around these areas. So there's just a lasting chemical footprint from these grows. So it's getting these grows out of there and getting them out of there quickly, and it's hard because I'm told that once they get them out of there, they pretty much turn around and come back, and if they don't have funding to rip up all the water lines and all the infrastructure that they put in there, and they don't always do, then they come back and just pretty much set up shop and go again. So it's kind of, when they legalized marijuana for everybody, there was a real hope that these, trespass grows would stop or reduce, but that just has not been the case.
Do you think the chemical? Well, I would think the chemicals would leach into the cannabis.
Well, yeah, it might. I don't know. I think that the pesticides are generally used to keep the pests away, not necessarily on the crops, but to keep them away. They have like something they use for bears that's deadly to bears, and it's been banned in California. But when you're out there in these forests, the bears are a reality. So and maybe there is stuff going into the cannabis as well, but it's really kind of a problem. And it's the North State, the northwest part of the state, like from like about Napa, Sonoma, north to the Oregon border. There's a big bunch of mountains there. I think they're the Cascade Mountains, and they're just very rugged, and there's there's only 2 roads that cross that area. They're about, 50, 75 miles apart. And the one road that we drove on was 110 miles down a 2-lane road with very few straight stretches and very, very little people there. There was one very small town in the middle that had a gas station and a sign that, it's 58 miles to the next gas station kind of thing. But, just very unoccupied, untraveled area, which makes it really perfect for these, illegal grows, because you really have to, there's just so much space, and it's very easy to get in there and, do things. So
I'd be more scared of the cartel than I would be of a bear.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like there might be a
Unknown
sequel to
participant
Cocaine
is now
Bear,
joining.
and it sounds like it might be something else.
Yeah, I mean, what's really scary is that these places exist out on the environment, and they have booby traps and other things to sort of protect them. And hikers can inadvertently come upon these grows, which, on occasion has not ended well. So, it's kind of the scary thing. If you're out in the middle of a forest, you don't want to meet up with, the cartel on their illegal grow site.
No,
Not at all.
I wouldn't do.
So
Well,
can we change? Yeah, can we change the topic to something a little bit more positive and tell me a little bit about what's going on with the groundwater data collection from DWR? Because that actually seems super cool. I'm totally nerding out about it.
Yeah, well, NASA launched a new satellite back a few months ago, I believe, and it's starting to pick up data now, and this is going to help DWR with subsidence, making better decisions about subsidence and seeing where it's a problem. They're expecting data will be available later this year. And, DWR has been working a lot with a lot of high-tech things and gathering a lot of data to support implementation of SGMA, or the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, especially in the San Joaquin Valley. And there's a very renewed focus now on land subsidence with this best management practices document for subsidence. So the satellite data is one way they're working to support those efforts and to get good data into the hands of the people that are running these groundwater basins. They're also working with the USGS to be mapping how these basins are made up geologically and figure out where is the best place to put in to sink water in, where are the areas that are most likely to occur with land subsidence. So there's just been a lot of data that DWR has been collecting to support SGMA implementation, including these AEM surveys and all of that. So it's really kind of exciting. I do think that DWR has done a really good job with getting data into the hands of these groundwater basins for the purposes of Sigma implementation.
Yep.
So how would an agency potentially get access to that information, or do you know that? Do you happen to know that?
Oh, yeah. They have a portal. They call it the Sigma portal. If you were just to Google Sigma portal, you'll come up with it. And on that website, they have all their data sets that are available, and you can drill down into your basin and you can see what data is available. And this is open to the public, so, if people really wanted to get technical about their groundwater in their groundwater basin, they could certainly go to this Sigma portal.
It makes me wonder how the data could be used for potential groundwater modeling and how to advance, because we have all these glorious groundwater models, and then we're looking at how the different ways that we're pumping water would impact the groundwater table. And so I'm really excited to see how this data might complement that effort. It's really super interesting.
Yeah, and Sigma implementation it's a lot of math, a lot of technical stuff. These groundwater sustainability plans are not narrative documents, where they just talk about what they're going to do. I mean, they list precise figures. They have to set what's called a measurable objective, which means you're going to measure something, not just talk about it. So there's, it's a data point that they have to manage to. So it's been quite a lift for the groundwater agencies to put together these groundwater sustainability plans. I kind of think that the groundwater folks have it harder than the surface water folks. And, Aaron Fukuda with the Mid-Korea GSA has said that Sigma isn't really a groundwater law as much as it's a surface water law, because essentially you can only pump out what you can put in, what you can recharge in your groundwater basin. So it really is more about obtaining water for groundwater recharge, in these basins.
Well, and I love that I'm part of United Water Conservation Districts because we're number one in groundwater recharge per acre foot. So super excited about that moment, little brag. But one of the really interesting things is about measuring the threshold, because there's so many threshold questions. And then I love the fact that a lot of the GMAs have had to incorporate outside input into their groundwater management plans, because it really shows that it's not just an agency effort, it's a community effort. We can't do this alone. And so it's really fascinating to see how all of those pieces kind of come together and then create something that's a plan forward, so that we're not dealing with these massive potential subsidence issues that I know some other states are maybe addressing.
Yeah, definitely. I had a thought and then it left. I'm on the train and it left, and it forgot to take
the high-speed rail, just right out of here.
Exactly. High-speed rail to nowhere. Yeah, but groundwater management, it's really something. And, for these GSAs, what's really important is to bring your groundwater basin folks along with you, and I think that's been a very hard process for these landowners and these farmers to grasp this groundwater stuff, because it's pretty heady, pretty technical stuff. But you have to bring them along. You have to engage them in the process, because that's the only way you're going to have any chance to implement your groundwater sustainability plan. Because if you don't, then they're going to file lawsuits, and then nothing goes anywhere. And I mean, that's what we're seeing right now in the Tulare Basin. They were the first groundwater basin to be put on probation, and now, and they went and filed a lawsuit and got an injunction right away. And now, we'll see how long it takes to resolve that situation. Meanwhile, then the Tule Basin, the second basin, is on probation, and they did not file a lawsuit, so they are actually right now the only one on probation. There were six basins that were referred to the State Water Board for intervention in this first batch. So those two got on probation, and the other four managed to fix up their plans and get off of probation, or not. They didn't even get to the hearing. They managed to get back to what they talk about as being under DWR's purview. So that leaves the Tule Basin, and that basin is challenged because the Friant Kern Canal runs through it. The Friant Kern Canal has had a subsidence problem, and they've spent multi-million dollars to fix it up, and it's still sinking, especially when it goes through the Tule subbasin. So there's lawsuits and all kinds of things going on. I don't think the Tule subbasin is they're going to have to continue on the probationary process. And the Tulare Basin, well, nothing's happened, and so we're still waiting to see. And on Tuesday, they had a court hearing, and they sort of fleshing out the details of this case. And the judge says that he'll issue a decision quickly, which quickly in court terms is about 2 months. So we'll see what happens.
Well, speaking about things with educating and things, CalWAP, we all know that there's AB 1572, if we're all familiar with that, and that's to support compliance of California's landmark non-functional turf rule. And we're going to have some people, I don't know if ladies know Tia Fleming.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, Tia's been on the show before. She's going to come on and talk about that, what they're doing with the toolkit. So we'll bring you up to date on that in the next couple of weeks, but she'll be in to talk about that. I think that's an important factor. I think it's great that they're doing that. Also, there was another article you had that was interesting to me about the California nursery industry grapples with the plastics and the water and the nutrients, and they're planting pots. What do they do with them? They got to use them more than once and things of that sort. Where do you think that's going to go in the future? You think that's going to hurt the nursery industry?
Well, I think that the pots that plants come in, that is actually easy to solve because they have pots made of peat and other things that I think they'll be easier to. That's easier to solve than other things. But other ways that agriculture uses plastic will be much harder to do. The article that you talk about covered a conference and where they talked about a number of issues, and one of them is what are we going to do about this plastics? The other, it also talks about like what we were just talking about, no more potable water on non-functional turf. Although they see this as an opportunity because maybe we can, get people to switch over to climate-adapted plants or native plants to the area. And, California native plants are really quite beautiful. And I have seen people who have put in these plants, and they can bloom at different times of the year. So you could, set yourself up with this space up with a garden that might have something flowering every month of the year. So, and it's quite nice. And if it's with non-functional turf, means nobody's walking on it, nothing's happening to it, so it probably doesn't have to be turf anyways, right? So it can be something different. So
well, turf would be preferable only in the sense that it keeps things cool. But when they start adding cement and rocks, you get all this heat coming off of it. So I don't know. I agree that non-functional turf, like in medians in the highways or streets, that they really don't do anything except look green, and nobody walks on them. So I have no problem with removing those and doing things. But I think parks and people that have kids in their backyards and things like that. I think there should be some play area spaces and things of that sort. But yeah, like I said, the medians on the street, why have it? It's just a waste of time and water. And paint cement green or paint something dirt green or whatever. It's just well, it's just like the pots we were talking about for the nursery. And you said you give them a pea. You can get these things and they bust up. They break up, and you can reuse the pot in a different form. And so I think that's a great idea to have that. But it's going to be tough for a lot of people to follow that. And I don't know how much they're going to go after people to do that. Just like if you go over your water budget for your home, you get a warning, then you get a fine. And last time a lot of water agencies didn't really give big fines out to a lot of people. They maybe had one or two big customers that they went after, but the homeowners, how are they going to go check that? And just like I always say, when you go out with Sigma or anything else, and they tell you these are the new components you got to use, they got to be 18 inches from the curb, they got to be this, pressure regulated, blah 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 blah. That's great, and for builders that build homes, that's wonderful too. But what happens when they go to sell it? That's my point. They never follow through with that. So 3 years, 5 years, 10 years later, when somebody's going to sell that property, nobody checks to see. There's no regulation that says it has to meet and stay in the same standard that it was approved in. I don't
understand. They need an irrigation cop. I hear you have the perfect costume.
people, to tell you the truth, is people that argued about that and said they don't want people coming in. But there were people for some water districts. They hired people to go around and look and take pictures and stuff. The worst I saw was in Beverly Hills, and I went to one house with a lady who was in charge of conservation for Beverly Hills Water. And this house had, this mega mansion, let's put it that way, had 7 swimming pools.
Wow.
On his property, okay? It was above, north of Sunset Strip. I couldn't believe it. So she's talking to him, and she says, you're not conserving water and this and that, and it's, you're going to get fined. And obviously he was very wealthy to have a mansion like he had with seven pools. He says, I can afford to pay for the water. And that was his comment to her.
Yeah.
And left it at that.
My understanding is fines are fees for wealthy people.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Anyway, so I don't know if either one of you are going to head up to New Orleans or Nolans coming up for the irrigation show and educational week. They're heading to the Big Easy for the 2025 Irrigation Show and Education Week from December 8th through 11th. Thousands of irrigation professionals will gather there, and you can't miss the event. So High Energy Trade Show is located with Groundwater Week, giving attendees even more exhibits and connections to explore. So if you want to register, go to, I have to throw a commercial in, go to irrigation-show-.org by October 24th to lock in bad savings. So it's a good show to go to. It's very good. I've been going to that thing for, over 20 years. And I don't know if any of you ladies, but for our listeners, if you are in the landscape hardscape business, I suggest you go. And if you're not, you can still go and learn a lot of stuff. They have lots of seminars and educational courses and books. It's a great way to do that. Any comments? Are you ladies going to be up there at all?
Oh, I have, yeah. I'll be working right here at my desk probably the entire time.
Okay.
And I have no budget for travel.
Okay.
My funding is thin. My budget for travel is zip. So.
Well, what I have to tell the audience is please go to mavensnotebook.com, become a subscriber, get all this information from her every single morning, and you can also become a sponsor, and she would appreciate that. Anything that you want to give would be more than welcome. Because she's up, God knows, hundreds of hours a week doing her thing, and I don't know how she sleeps or if she even sleeps. I think she stays up, never goes to sleep. And the way she does it. But anyway, Chris, thank you very much for coming on today, and we're going to talk to you next week. You stay healthy and good, and again, you got our warmest sympathy and stuff for your mom's passing, and we hope you're okay. And that's all I can say about that. So
yeah. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
See you next week.
All right, sorry I had to slick that commercial in, but now we got to go to somebody else who's going to do a commercial, and then we got our special guest coming on, so stick around for the second half of the Water Zone. We'll be right back.
This fall, the partner points will add up like never before with SiteOne's Fall into Points promotion. For a limited time, earn triple points on all FX Luminaire products, as well as double points on Hunter valves, sprays, and nozzles. Hunter and FX Luminaire, industry leaders in irrigation and lighting, are here to make sure you're getting the quality and performance your projects and customers demand. Plus, customers in the Hunter Preferred program will earn 100 Preferred program bonus points when they buy $1,500 or more of FX Luminaire at one time. Get ready to fall into points this September and October at SiteOne.
Oh, I guess we have silence.
You're back on live.
Okay, sorry about that. They must be having storms up in California with the main station broadcast from us. Anyway, we have a continuing saga going on with the New Mexico Consortium, and they've been on 8 segments, and we're going to continue that today. We have Mr. Mike Hightower, who's in charge of the consortium for New Mexico State University, and he has a special guest that we want to bring on and talk about what's happening with elements in produced water. So, Mike, welcome to the show.
Hello, Rob. How are you doing today?
Good. A little bit of technical problems that we're having, but we've got that. Hopefully, the engineer got that squared away. Why don't you bring on and introduce your guest, and then we can get into the really interesting conversation about produced water.
Surely. So, thank you for having us on again. We've been providing input on some of the directions on produced water treatment and reuse around the U.S. And the directions that EPA is pursuing under their Water Reuse Action Plan on looking at produced water reuse and treatment for safe applications. And for people have asked us about, there's a lot of interest now in produced water and mineral recovery. And so I brought on with me today Dr. Kyle Murray with Murray Geo Consulting, who recently retired from the Oklahoma Bureau of Geology. And he's been working with the Groundwater Protection Council and the Society of Petroleum Engineers to look at mineral recovery from produced water. So a lot of people understand that produced water could be anywhere from 4 to 5 times more salty than seawater. And there's a lot of minerals in produced water in many states. And Kyle has been working and taking samples from a number of states, has looked at over 400 different wells and analyzed those, looking at the types of minerals that could be recovered to help cover the costs of the treatment and reuse of produced water in a lot of the western and eastern states that need additional water resources. So I'm going to let Kyle go ahead and just talk about the program that he's put together for the Society of Petroleum Engineers and Groundwater Protection Council, some of the results that he's seeing, and what kinds of minerals might be of interest and valuable for different states. Everyone talks about lithium, and some produced waters have lithium or other minerals that can be recovered. So, Kyle, let me go ahead and hand it over to you and spend a few minutes talking about your program and what you might some of the lessons learned from the work that you've done.
Sure. Let me give you a kind of a quick overview of what I've been doing for the last few years. I started this program. I lived in Oklahoma at the time. Now I live in Colorado, but I started sampling produced water from wells and tank batteries and saltwater disposal well facilities in Oklahoma and Kansas, and moved to Texas and then North Dakota and Montana and California, Santa Maria Basin and San Joaquin Basin out there. Also moved into Nebraska and West Virginia and Pennsylvania. So I sampled wells from about 9 states at this point. And what I attempt to do is to characterize the geochemistry of that water as thoroughly as possible, tried to do a comprehensive analysis of the elements that are present in that water. And so if you look at the periodic table of elements, there's about 112 naturally occurring elements that could be present in rock or water. And I analyzed for about 70 elements in my produced water samples. So I'm able to characterize the major constituents like sodium and chloride and calcium and potassium, but those don't necessarily have a lot of value. So because the funding comes indirectly from the Department of Energy, the goal is to really identify some elements that would be on the list of critical minerals that's published by the USGS, and then industrial minerals that we know are widely used for industrial processes and products, and try to identify areas that are enriched with those elements, and then pursue projects that could economically extract them from produced water and then turn out a product to our customers. And the customers could be nationwide. They could be outside of the U.S. and become a net exporter of some of these minerals. So I could keep going, but let me stop there and see if you have some questions to get started. Let me make one correction, though. Mike did say something about the total dissolved solids concentration of produced water could be 4 to 5 times salty as seawater. I want to correct that and say it could be 10 times as salty as seawater. So just to kind of give you a perspective, if you're looking at water for drinking water or for irrigation, your total dissolved solids concentration should be probably less than 1,000 milligrams per liter. Seawater would be about 35,000 milligrams per liter. But produced water, I've measured TDS of over 400,000 milligrams per liter. So what that tells me is that when we have higher total dissolved solids concentration, it's likely to be enriched with some elements that we might be interested in extracting, especially if we're doing reuse and treatment. We have to desalinate that water, and then we would have a concentrated brine with some of those elements present. So let me stop there and let you jump in with questions and redirect me.
Okay. Well, Kyle, welcome to the show. This is Rob. I hope you thank you for joining us. We do appreciate that. I know I agree with you on the issue with critical minerals like lithium, rubium, cesium, gallium, platinum group metals. I think that's really important for the computer world and energy and transportation issues. But you also mentioned, the lesser ones like sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium. But those are used a lot for manufacturing processes, fertilizer production, and other industries. So, I mean, there's a wealth, there's a wealth of dollars that could be had by harvesting or going through the brine and cleaning that up. And then there's different processes that they use to do that. They talk about desalination, ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, things like that. But there's a new one that they're talking about, CO2. Do you know much about that type of separating the minerals?
I don't measure CO2 concentrations. I'm basically looking at elements in all of the produced water that I sample. Yeah. Dissolved CO2 is kind of a different measurement technique.
Okay. So this is Tara. I'm just wondering if you're the answer to the salt sea issue, because I think of Lithium Valley, and that's exactly what they're trying to do is pull that brine out and then extract the lithium from it. And I'm also wondering, in that same token, how the new lithium deposit that was literally just happened, how that affects what you're trying to do and the price point that you're trying to sell these things at.
Yeah, the market for lithium I try to monitor or track the price of each of these elements over time. So I've been looking at the prices for the last 7 years or so for these elements. And lithium's been kind of all over the place. It peaked in 2022, and it dropped off in 2023, 2024. So it's kind of hard to predict, especially with discovering new sources and then potentially tariffs affecting the prices. It's hard to predict what the price will be in 2025 or what it has been in 2025. I usually get that information from USGS, and it's looking back a few months. We usually have that information in the early part of the next year. So I don't know how tariffs or how new discoveries are going to affect the prices, but what's going to really drive a resource is the concentration that's available, and then the price point, whether it changes or not, is not as critical as the concentration and then the extraction cost. So what does it take to mine it if it's coming from a solid rock, or what does it take to extract it if it's coming out of a water concentrated brine or a produced water stream? So there's going to be quite a different profile there. If you're doing surface mining and you're mining it from hard rock, you've got a lot of environmental issues and management issues that play into the cost. What I'm interested in produced water is we already have the water coming to the surface, so there's no cost to produce that. It's already accounted for. Now the only cost is really to pull it out of that stream and deliver a product. So that's kind of a complicated question to look at the supply and demand and how that affects the price, but we'll see how that plays out in the next year.
In the process of desalinating, I guess I'm just using this word widely.
Yeah.
To doing that on produced water, the approach of mining all the salt and minerals before treating the water hasn't been explored. Is that something? I know you're trying to solve an issue that's there, and plus it's an opportunity to retract some minerals and things. Do you see new technologies coming out to do any of these things? Whether you have brackish sources and using what I was talking about earlier, CO2 desalination, which to me, I thought, from what I've read, is sort of a groundbreaking approach to targeted mineral recovery from produced water. And they even use reverse osmosis as part of that. And you're right, there is a cost to that. I personally don't know what the cost is and the value of that compared to what you're going to take out of. But it seems to be a big deal about it. Even in Texas now, I don't know if you're familiar with this, Texas has a lawsuit about, they call it the lithium law. And there's Senate Bill, I believe, 1763, which proposes a new chapter to the Resources Code and Water Code to clarify what constitutes and what's rightly owned, who owns the brine minerals. That's kind of a big case going to court there. Yeah. Do you know much about that? Because I only know what I just said. I don't know in-depth knowledge of all of that. Well, being honest with you, I don't.
Yeah, I'll work backwards. Who owns the minerals that are in the water? I think that's going to vary depending on the state, and a lot of states probably couldn't answer that question right now. Texas is trying to. Some other places have attempted to answer that, where there's some active mineral recovery from brines.
Right.
But that's a complicated question. It's going to vary by state because most of that water is going to be related to oil and gas production, and who knows how the mineral rights work in each state. They're going to be different. But the technologies, if you go back to that part of your question, you hear a lot about direct lithium extraction, and I think that term is a little bit misleading because any mineral extraction from water is going to involve multiple steps. It could involve an oxidation step, a pH adjustment step, a sorbent and a desorbent, and then a purification step. So direct lithium extraction sounds sexy, but it's really a bunch of steps that are involved, and it's a little bit misleading. But the cost, I do have some costs for extracting lithium, and I work in dollars per barrel. Everything I do is dollars per barrel because that translates to the oil and gas industry pretty well. So a barrel is 42 gallons of water. So to extract lithium, depends on the concentration, but the numbers that I have range from 6 cents per barrel to 43 cents per barrel. And so what I try to do is assess, based on the concentration and the current commodity value of lithium, what's the value of that lithium in the produced water stream. And so if it's greater than 6 cents, if it's greater than 50 cents, if it's close to $1 per barrel in gross value, then the economics work out pretty well. We have the technology to extract it. But again, back to the technology, there's always something new coming out, but we have to be able to quantify, the cost to use that technology on a specific type of water. And you can't extract lithium without having interference from other elements, like the diatomic cations, or specifically calcium and magnesium, could interfere with that process. So you're going to have to deal with each of those elements, and it's going to take multiple steps and multiple phases to get each of those elements out of there.
And what is the potential? Oh, sorry. Did you want to continue on, Rob, with your question, with your line of questioning?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of change gears. So I'm wondering what the potential environmental impacts and benefits of what you're doing are, because I think of like water reuse and then reintroducing that cleaner water into the environment potentially, or is that used for drinking water and potable water? Like, how does that kind of all work in your setup?
I think the environmental benefits would be that we would be harvesting minerals or elements from a water stream that's already brought to the surface. We wouldn't have to develop a new open surface mine. We wouldn't have evaporation ponds like we have in South America that provides lithium, as a big provider of lithium. They have huge evaporation ponds, and so we wouldn't have to go through that process because we have better technology. The environmental benefits, if you're putting it into place with a reuse system, then you have a new source of fresh water for irrigation, like in New Mexico and West Texas. It would be a great way to supplement the limited rainfall that's available there. So we'd have minerals extracted environmentally friendly way. We would have a clean water stream to make use of in another domain.
Are there? I know there's government sponsors for a lot of projects and things, but concentrating on critical mineral mining in places, they're looking at the seafloor, even asteroids, not on something as close to home as produced water. Do you see that changing in the future? Because there's some gentleman in the industry, I took this down, it's his quote, not mine. That produced water may not be beautiful if we look at it as a waste, but it will be impactful to the world's next generations if we look at it as a resource. And do you think most of these states are going to really want the produced water, to be really cleaned up and get as much out of it as they can? But is that going to put a bear on the petroleum companies that have to pay for this? Is it worth doing?
Well, my approach really looks at the economics in a very simple way. And I think that the concentrations of critical minerals, there's about 10 to 15 elements of interest. Most of those are critical minerals. Some are industrial minerals. The concentrations in produced water, it would be another revenue stream for the oil and gas companies if they were extracting those in the right place with the right systems. So, for example, I've looked at about 7 different basins in the U.S., and there's some basins where they could meet the U.S. demand for critical minerals, a handful of critical minerals, if they extracted those minerals from only a 50,000 barrel of water per day plant. So, for example, in the Williston Basin in North Dakota, the concentrations are so high, if we treated and extracted those minerals, we could meet all of the U.S. demand for some of those critical minerals therefore we wouldn't have to import them from overseas. So by definition, a critical mineral is something that's used in our high-tech industries today, and they're imported from outside of our borders. So 75% to 100% of those critical minerals are imported from outside of our borders. So if we could have a domestic supply, not only would we become mineral independent, but we would also have a new revenue stream in certain places for some of the operators that pursue that.
Do you believe the U.S. government would be a good sponsor? I mean, are they, obviously we have, well, depends who you listen to, if we
Absolutely.
have money or if we don't have money, but I believe that's something they should take a look at and be more critical in the mining of places that, here on our territory versus somewhere else. We have it. Just like the oil and natural gas. I mean, we don't use it. I guess we're starting to use it now the way we should, and more of it. But we got a lot to last us a long time. I think it's an important thing to do. That's just my own opinion.
Yeah, I think absolutely the U.S. government, the Department of Energy, Department of Defense are interested in and funding work in this area. So some of my funding comes from the Department of Energy. And they have a strategic interest in securing those domestic supplies. So I think certainly they're interested in critical minerals from a variety of sources, and produced water is one of them. That's the one I focus on. But yeah, for sure, the U.S. government's going to be in support of that. You got to put the right pieces together to get that work done.
Mike, how is
Kyle,
that? Go ahead.
Rob, I just mentioned, Kyle, this is Mike Hightower. We originally have been looking at produced water to supplement water supplies for, some of the 35 states that have oil and gas production.
Right.
Mineral recovery, could pay for parts of those that treatment to provide better water stewardship. So just for those states of the 35 states, how many of them do you see that there's an opportunity for some mineral recovery? Is it half of them, or a third, or a fourth of them of the states that should be looking at the mineral recovery aspects, because it would help offset costs for treatment? Is it just 10 or 2 or 3%, or is it 20 or 30% of the states where we have some opportunities?
I sampled wells or tank batteries in 9 states, and 2 of those states, the concentrations are not high enough to be super exciting. So I'm not going to point out which ones, but 7 out of 9, I think there's an opportunity there to recover critical minerals, other elements of interest, and actually generate some revenue, offset some costs of water reuse and treatment.
Are there other uses for this? Like, I'm thinking ag runoff and some other kind of in that same space, besides just oil and gas produced water?
You mean other sources of water that we could potentially extract minerals from?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think municipal wastewater is a possibility. And then, in the coal-fired power plant world, there's some opportunity there because they use some water and they have some issues with elements like selenium. That is a contaminant that's regulated by EPA, and it's actually a critical mineral. So depending on the volume and concentration, there could be some opportunity there to extract those and then solve a problem at the same time. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities. Wastewater of any kind, I don't use that term wastewater very often, but it could be viewed as a resource if you look at it in the right way.
Hey, Kyle, there's a lot more questions and things that I would love to be able to talk to you and Mike and everybody. I won't ask you for a date, but I'd really like to have you back so we can continue this discussion. To me, it's a big thing that we should all know about. And Mike, I have a lot of questions to ask again with you, and that maybe we can set this up in the next couple of weeks. You guys come back and let's continue this discussion. So hopefully you can do that.
Be happy to do that, Rob.
All right. Well, we got to go. we got to turn this back over to NBC News. This is their news hour, and they're much bigger than we are, so I don't have a choice in saying no to them. We appreciate that. This goes to a podcast 24 hours later on 17 different media platforms. So if anybody wants to do that, just check who you get it through, and you can see it. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on the show. I will contact you early next week, and we can set up another one, the continuation of this, because I want to go a little bit more deeper into the process and costing, and can you reuse that brine water to go pump some more oil out, and a bunch of questions like that. So you guys, thank you very much. We do appreciate it, and hopefully we'll set something up for the next couple of weeks. So thank you very much, and to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Water Zone. We do appreciate your participation with us in the conversation, and send any questions you got into our website, and we'll be glad to get back to you. And remember, if you like green, you got to have blue. So good night, everybody. You have a great week. We'll talk to you next week. Have a good one.